Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello there.
How are we today?
Oh, I'm doing amazingly well. Doing amazingly well. Today has been amazing already.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. Yes. For you as well?
Absolutely. Every day is magical.
Awesome. Awesome. And thank you for just bringing your magical energy to
Oh,
Qigong all the time.
oh, thank you for hosting. It's been one of like the highlights of my days.
Oh, so I'm happy to hear that. What do you feel like it's strengthening? Like what do you feel like you gain from it or maintain from it?
It's strengthening my balance and my connection with higher power is what I feel like. Because I could go in feeling like, I think I've mentioned this to you before, I could go in feeling like sticky, icky, and then I come out like loosey goosey.
Ooey gooey. Ooey
Yeah.
gooey. Hold on. You go in sticky icky
Yes.
and you come out loosey goosey.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just like, oh yeah, we just flow freely after qigong. Everything's just flowing.
Wow, wow. Why does that sound so delicious?
Because you know what it feels like. That's why.
Right. You know what it feels like. That's real. That's real. Very descriptive. I haven't heard anybody else put it that way before, put it quite that way in so many words. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jerome. You're the reason. You are the reason that I did qigong.
Oh, blessings. Blessing. Wow. Because you have so many practices that are very nourishing and flourishing because I remember seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you spend time with Father Soul each rising?
Every rising,
Every
yes.
rising. How long has that been going on?
That's been for about a year straight.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, at the
at
beach?
the beach every single morning. Yeah.
Every single morning. Well, like for a year straight, what made you start that and embark on that to have that as a part of your process? What made you commit to that every single day for a year?
Trusting that it was guided. It was guided into my life that Father Soul is medicine for our human beingness.
Hmm.
So to reach this next level of evolution, that was what I was told to do, to rise with the sun.
You were told to do this,
Yes.
but you're saying you were told by your higher self or you were told by someone else?
Within my meditations.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
Beautiful.
baby. Sorry, my partner's here. Hi, baby.
Oh, oh, hey there. What's his name?
Roy.
Roy. Roy. Shout out to Roy. Roy in the house. Does Roy come on? Does Roy come with you when you're spending time with the sun?
He sometimes does when he's up early enough. He'll walk with me,
Okay.
but he works every day, so
Okay.
he has his own practices in the morning.
True. True that. True that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that practice because for some people, these practices are in solitude and with their own, and it is, with yourself, with your own beingness, but you express and then you share it with others. I'm like, wow, she's sharing this practice with us and letting us feel the energy from Father Soul. I think that's awesome,
Yeah, because I feel like even if you can't be there, if you're able to just see it pop up on your stories, like it's still offering some
Mhm.
inspiration, some positivity, some kind of energy exchange is definitely happening.
Mhm. Absolutely. I agree, because when you mentioned that you have chants, you called it gratitude chants, where you're like, thank you for teaching, thank you for healing, thank you for nourishing, and thank you for fueling, right?
Yes. Way to
And
go,
that's very,
Jerome.
what'd you say?
I said, way to go. You had it memorized.
Well, these words are very intentional,
Yes.
and they're charged with energy. So how did you come up with that for yourself, and why do you feel like that has given you much to have that kind of prayer, the gratitude chant, as it were? How did you come up with it?
Because the longer that I sat sitting with Father Soul, the more I received from Father Soul, like as I kept staring into the morning light, because it doesn't hurt our eyes, it actually charges us up. And the longer I looked, like you can literally see the information coming off of the sun. And the longer I sat there, the more downloads I was starting to get. And it was like, oh, the sun teaches us. Like, it's a lot like human beings. Like, we sit with it long enough, it's going to tell us everything we need to know. And that's what happened. I sat with it long enough, and it's like, well, the sun is responsible for teaching. It's responsible for nourishing. It fuels us up. It recharges our energy. So these are just all learned, I guess, or remembered wisdom, I would say, because that's that's what I receive when I'm, grounded on the beach with the sun on my face, listening to the waves and letting the wind circulate around me. Yeah. It's just serenity.
Yeah, it is. And we feel that serenity, we feel that vibration, and we feel that as you're putting out this information, because even as you're speaking, Erika, these things that we're remembering, we're coming back into the remembrance of these practices. I feel like this is like, how people talk about ancient wisdom, or there's even cultures like maybe Native American cultures or other cultures that they revere the sun, They don't fear the sun, right? They revere the sun.
Yes.
So they have sun dances and times where they bask in the sunlight and they're dancing, and it is just so much energy. Why do you feel like people run away from that energy?
Because they're taught to fear it. As soon as we enter this world, we begin our programming. And we're taught the sun burns us. It causes cancer. It can cause heat stroke if you stay out in the heat too often. And, honestly, the only way to get out of that programming is to challenge it for your own self. And that's what I do. I challenge everything that's ever placed upon me just to see, is that really true? Or is this some fear-based programming that I'm supposed to overcome? And I'm not saying oh, just go spend 8 hours in the sun. That's not how it works. I kind of look at it like a gymnasium. We're not going to go lift weights for 8 hours, right? We're going to do it for a little bit, see how we feel, and maybe we'll go a bit longer the next day. Right. And then also it depends on what we're putting into our body, what's going to burn, because the sun actually detoxes us. So what are we intoxicating our beings with for the sun that has to detox it back out? That's where the burning is coming from. Or what are we adding onto our skin that's actually intoxicating us, that the sun has to burn off of us to detox?
Okay. And within that burning comes even more learning,
Absolutely.
I love that. What are we intoxicating with, and how are we detoxifying from? This is a very good message, for people to hear, and to release all the fear, from these beings. Like I look at the sun, and when I started sun gazing, it was like I was communicating with a cosmic intelligence. It felt like I was really, like you said, receiving the downloads.
Yeah.
Receiving the light codes,
Mm-hmm.
So when you were actually gazing at the sun with intention, how do you feel it allowed you to see the world differently?
Oh, it's like a 360. It's just whatever download comes that day from sitting in the sun. There's so many lessons to be found. A lot of my reels that I do in my reel challenges, that's where they're birthed, right there on that beach. Oh. And then I'll just pick a time of day to film them, whether it's right when I get into my car afterwards, or when I get home and take care of some other things, and then I'll hop on and record it. But yeah, that's where they're usually birthed, because that's where I sit and set my intention for the day and get my guidance for the day. Oh, what's Erika doing today? Erika doesn't decide. Okay. I let what's meant to be happen and just go from there.
Yeah. Yes. Allow what's meant to be and go from there. Wow. And grow from there.
Yes.
I love that, because not only do you spend time in the sun, but you spend time in your car sauna, so you're sweating out. You're you're not afraid of the heat, right?
Oh no.
What do they say? they say, if you can't take the heat, get up out of the kitchen.
Right?
You're like, I want all the heat.
I want
You
to
know, I
set my
want,
soul on fire.
oh my God. You know, it's almost like going through challenges, overcoming challenges, and challenging yourself, being able to say challenge accepted. You're like putting yourself through that refiner's fire, almost like you know, the striking of metal with that heat, you know, it's like tempering, you're tempering yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's, you get stronger and
Yes.
stronger, you know, it's interesting. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the contract that my soul had to come here was I'm an empath. I'm very emotional, very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I learn is through feeling, through experience.
Mm-hmm.
So to put myself in a sauna, like that's a lot of intense feelings happening.
Right,
So there's
right,
a
right.
lot of learning going on. And there's also this magical like trifecta that I call it, because you have the heat and you have the sweating and you have the silence. And it's like with those three things, something activates within me because I can feel the buzz starting in like my pineal gland, my pituitary, my hypothalamus, like they all start buzzing. And it's like, okay, incoming downloads. And it's just like really quick, so fast that I no longer can write them down. Like I literally have to pull my phone and hit record and just talk into my phone because of the immense downloads that I receive in the car sauna. So it's not only that I go in there for like my physical being health, because that's what's detoxing everything. Like we're not just sweating, we're detoxing our liver, our kidneys, like our internal organs are all detoxing when we're sweating. That's what's being pulled out.
Yeah.
And then you also have this higher level spiritual experience from sitting within the heat and putting yourself, you know, through challenging experiences. You unlock higher levels of wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So there's like a balance. There's I like how you called it a trifecta. So it's happening at once. At the same time, things are being pulled out. You're saying things are being streamed in.
Mm-hmm. That's wild that you just made that connection too, because I didn't even make that connection. It's like, okay, I'm sweating, I'm making space so the new can come in. I see what you did there.
This is amazing because, you know, you just said something, Erica, and it was about writing, because I know that you're big on writing. You know,
Yeah.
you're very poetic, and you also have your journal, you have your writings, your book. And you know, when have you tried automatic writing? Because like,
I don't like a stream of consciousness writing.
right, because you said that there were some things that came in so fast that you couldn't even write it fast enough.
Yes, because I have tried do stream of consciousness and it's way too fast.
Wow.
I cannot keep up. Like I'm not there yet to be able to write as quickly as it comes.
Oh my gosh. So if it's coming that fast, like, what does that tell you?
I'm tapped in. I am tapped in. Like I'll just share my experience because I just got out of car sauna right before we hopped on live. And one, I'm super emotional today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, it's moon day. Like the moon is, you know, that's what it's symbolic for, emotions and like the mother of this universe. And like in the car sauna this morning, I time traveled to my childhood bedroom, right? And I was watching little me play with her dollhouse. And I always have these two little fake puppy dogs named Bullet and Tasha. I don't know where those names come from, but now that I remember them, I want to like look into them. But so that's what I was doing when I went into the childhood bedroom, and all of a sudden she looked over at me and got up and came over and hugged me. And I was like, I gasped. I was like, oh my goodness, you can see me. And she looks up and she's like, thank you for remembering. And I was like, of course I remembered. Like, you're the reason I'm here. Like, it was just so magical. And I'm just like streaming down tears. And it was just like, wow, these car saunas are like getting very intense. Like the longer that I stay committed to this journey that I'm on, it just gets more and more expansive each day.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that. Just sharing that testimony. That is powerful. You know, that is powerful because you're reminding me. I One of my friends told me that, and they're a breathwork teacher, and they do this method called holotropic breathwork, where just
Mm. Oh, I did that.
people are doing that for like a long period of time,
Yes.
and she's seen people, and she herself has gone back to childhood and had almost like a rebirthing,
Oh,
and
yes.
what it felt like to be in the womb. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that was possible. So what you're talking about in your car, son, is going back. Like, it blows the mind,
It's
you know?
funny that you bring that up. Actually, not funny. It's divine that you bring that up, because that exact breath work that you're talking about is a lot like somatic breath work. It's got the same pattern that you just said. And I tried that for the first time. Oh, the same week I started my challenge for Reels. And it was like an hour long, and you're breathing like that. And it's almost what you're doing is you're creating the DMT naturally within your brain that you would do on like a mushroom trip, like people do to like access higher realms. This is doing it in a natural way through your breath, because we can create DMT. Anything that's out there, we have within. Like let's just set that straight. There's nothing out there that's not already within here. So that's the number one truth. But anyway, so it creates that so that you're able to have those experiences and go back into childhood. And when I did, that was the most intense experience that I've had thus far in my healing journey. Like, I went back till I was like 4 years old, and I'm watching my parents follow me around like through like 3, 4, 5 years, always like, be careful, you don't want to get hurt, don't fall, like you don't want to get hurt. And I'm like, it just hit me. Like, that's why I'm afraid of pain. Like, this is why I'm afraid to feel pain, because my parents never wanted to get me, like never wanted to allow me to get hurt. So then I created this fear inside of me that I was like, I don't want to feel pain. Like, my parents always told me, like, that's not what we want to do here. And the moment that I felt that, it was like all the pain that I had ever experienced, like I felt it leave my body. Like, it came out through that breath work as I was screaming, crying, hitting myself, like through this breath work. It's almost like you're like a bigger power takes over to like, we're going to clear you out today. So it's like, it didn't feel like it was me hitting myself. Didn't feel like that. It was just like a release and an intense bout of releasing this trauma that sometimes when
Okay, the last thing I heard you say was releasing the trauma.
so until we release it, sometimes we can't move forward in this journey that we're on. It needs to be let go of, and sometimes it takes a little bit more intense processes.
Okay, okay. Jesus. So, my goodness, like when you had all of that release, when you were able to let all of that go, what do you feel you were left with? What remained?
Freedom. I feel like I was left with freedom, like this refreshed blank canvas that's like, okay, we can really start to explore now. Like, we don't need to be afraid to feel pain anymore. Like, that could have been one of the reasons why I wasn't why I wasn't showing up fully on this platform. It's because I was afraid of what people would think, and that might have caused me pain. So I don't know if releasing that is what caused, like, now I can show up every day, talk to you, like, whatever. I'm just being authentic, being me. Whoever's meant to hear it, hears it. Whoever doesn't, that's okay too.
Right.
But it's almost like it allowed that space. It was like it pulled that out of me. So just like kind of the sauna, when I sweat it out, I'm allowing more to come in.
Yeah.
Well, by releasing that trauma, I was allowed like to let more out fully.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, it makes it seem like we have so much more within us that we even realize, because like you were saying, Erika, taking you back to your childhood, back in your bedroom with Bullet and Tasha. Was it Bullet and Tasha? And even back when you were 4 years old, hearing those things, those instructions from your parents, those worries and those fears and those concerns, right? Don't do that, you know, like be careful, you know, something might happen, you might fall, you might trip, you might hurt yourself, and feeling like, oh wow, these are why these fears are here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes it seem like we have so many fears that we are unaware of, and we don't even know where they came from,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
So it's like until we do this deep inner work, we might not even realize where these things are sprouting or where they've been growing from, you know, we may not even know.
Absolutely. I had no idea. Like all I know that I was so leading to that breath work, I was getting hurt like repeatedly, like random stuff. Like I opened my car door into my head. I had like a little gash here for like days. I had a tooth pain that I was dealing with for days. And it was just like every little instance was like an injury. Like I scraped my knee on a tree and it was just like, okay, I know what we resist, we attract. Like that's just a universal law. But it also went deeper than that. I just didn't realize until I did that breath work. And it was like, were all those things building up so that I would go into this breath work and release them? Like the lessons often get louder and louder the stronger we get to be able to move through them, is what's been my experience. Like if something just gets more intense, more intense, more intense, it's like I learned to clap for myself, because that means like, hey, you're getting stronger. Like you're going to be able to handle this now.
Right.
So it's like, don't get so discouraged like that things are really hard. It's like, damn, you really got to this level now that like you can handle this.
Right.
So it's just like that mindset reframe.
So you can handle even more for, you know, being able to explore yourself more deeply. Now you can handle even more on the outside, externally.
Yes.
Because you went internally. Now you can handle externally. It's like both, both ends, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they say, as within, so without. So, I mean, there's so many. I mean, we hear about these laws of correspondence. We hear about these laws, these things that, I mean, for some people it sounds so trivial. For some people it sounds cliche, but it really makes sense on that level when you talk about it this way, when you share from your own experience that like, yeah, this is what happened. I could have never imagined, you know, but you went back, and I'm like picturing, as you're painting this picture, I'm picturing you seeing yourself and then having yourself come and run up to you and hug you. And you're like, oh my God, where would I be without you? Right?
Right.
That's amazing. Just a revelation to have with yourself, you know? Not even,
Right.
yeah.
I just thought it was magical, because I say all the time, like children are, we come into this realm very connected to source, or what oneness, whatever you call your God. We'll just leave it at that. But we come very connected. And then, you know, we have our pair of rentals, our parents, and we have all these experiences that we're subjected to and receive. And we start to get programmed.
Yeah.
And the more programmed we become, the more disconnected from source we become. But that little version of me was very connected, because I can think back to all the times that like I would lay in my bed as a little girl and just close my eyes, and I would see light language dancing on my eyelids, and I was just like, that's how I would communicate with source. But I forgot that for so many years. But it was just like seeing her today in meditation or whatever it was just like she knew that I was going to remember. Like it was already written in the stars. It was written in the light language.
Wow. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. It's almost like you know, like a message that you tucked inside of a bottle. You
Right.
You put a message in a bottle and you sealed the bottle, you put the cork on the bottle, and then you push the bottle out to sea. And now the bottle is in this big old ocean, and then finally it came back and you received a message from yourself, and it was still intact, you know, still in all
so beautiful.
That's beautiful. I mean, it is amazing. just to receive that from you, you know, like I knew you would always remember. I knew you wouldn't forget. I knew this day would come, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yes.
Wow. Wow. Nabiha is messaging down here. She also said that, you know, it's all within. We are just digging through. She said, meditate
Yes.
does the same for me. And Adam, shout out to Adam, he said, kids always remember their childhood, who's there for them. So, you know, it's interesting what you were saying, Erica, about programming, because I put up a question and it was on identity.
Yes.
And I love what you sent me a message because, you know, we do come in with a lot of programming, a lot of installations, and a lot of information that is kind of projected at us and placed upon us. You're given a denomination, you're given a name, you're given a religion, you're given a, you know, your history, you're given all these things in comparison to everyone else. You're told who you aren't, you're told who you are. And you said something, you said identity is an egoic attempt at survival.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa, can you touch on that? Can you go into like what that means to you?
So, I mean, the ego exists for, I say everything exists for divine reason, or else it wouldn't have the capacity to exist in the first place.
Mm.
So let's start there. So ego, what is the divine reason it exists for us? Well, it's meant to decide for, like, we're supposed to play with it, decide what it is, and use it to identify whether this is aligned with our true purpose or whether it isn't. And the only reason that the ego exists is for that. But the way that it operates is that it tries to identify, it attaches itself to any possible thing that it can identify with so that it remains alive. Because what ego is, like, at the core, is basically unconsciousness. That's what it is. And we're here to become conscious, to return to source. Like, this is our fall from grace, and we're supposed to climb our way back up through all the programming, through all the fear, just make our way through. So our ego plays as this, like, this little role, as like trying and figure out, like, is this real or is this not real? Because in my experience, like, I'll have these fears, but I'm conscious enough to be like, that's not aligned. Like, that doesn't feel like it's true. So, like, what is it? Oh, so that's me being aware and shining light upon it. And as soon as we shine light on darkness, what happens? It goes away. And that's all the ego is. It's not meant to hurt us. We don't need to kill it. We don't need to dismantle it permanently. Like, it's a part of us. It was designed that way. And all we need to do is maintain awareness. And that's how I maintain awareness to the ego. As soon as I notice, like, oh, I'm over identifying, or am I identifying at all? Like, oh, that's ego, because the soul already knows that we're home. It already knows that we're always safe. Like, we chose to come here. So there's nothing out there that can harm us. So anytime we feel scared, every time we're trying to attach ourselves to something, that's how we identify the ego. That's what the ego is there for.
Okay. Okay, beautiful explanation. You know, thank you for this breakdown. And as like we hear so many sides of it, but what you say makes a lot of sense, because even when you identified within yourself, within the breath work, and also within the Karsana, going back to the meeting that you had with yourself, you know, through that identification of your fears and seeing where your fears had first appeared, you know, in seeing where your fears came from, did it allow you, I don't know, how do I put this? Like, what did that, do you no longer now have those fears now that you know where they came from? Like, when you discovered the reason why,
Yeah.
did it fix? Oh, go ahead.
For me, yeah, that's been my experience. Like, because all fear is lack of comprehension. And once we I like to say understand, but understand, once we comprehend why it exists, it's no longer a fear. It evaporates, it goes away. It's because you know better so yeah. And when I was in that breath work and learning, like, oh, that's where that fear came from, I'm like, that was never mine. I didn't create that. That was fake and placed upon me by somebody else. So how is that real? That's not real. So
Mm-hmm.
once you understand what it is, it no longer has any control over you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is important to know. You know, this is so important for us to realize that when we understand and understand, right, that it no longer has a hold and it's no longer in control. And
Mm-hmm.
I love how you arrived at that point where you could release yourself from the control over the things that had a hold over you. Because I mean, like I was saying today, there's been so many times where I've just been in the car listening to one of my passengers tell a story or say something about themselves, and you might hear the self-deprecating comments, you might hear the put downs, you might hear things that they say that are very, very limiting, you know, or just putting themselves down and
Mm-hmm.
kind of shaming themselves or blaming themselves. And then they might say something, you know, they ask me like, hey, do you smoke? And I'm like, no, I don't. And they're like, oh man, you know, I don't know anybody who doesn't smoke. All my friends smoke. You know, I've been smoking since I was, you know, like a teenager, since I was 13 or 14. And when I probe deeper and I ask them why, sometimes they're like, I don't know, you know? And then like you ask them why, and then, you know, they go deeper and then they get to a point where they're like, man, I don't know. I never thought about it, you know? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like they can't trace back, they can't find the point where they even started to figure out why they've continued throughout all these years, as long as like they're still telling themselves that they want to do different or they want to change or they want to derail or go in another direction, but they haven't made that connection, you know?
Right.
So that's a big thing. It's a big
I
thing.
see now what I got out of what you just told me, and I love that you brought it up because I have a very strong theory that we all exist in our own worlds and that everyone else is a mirror or a reflection of what we are. And for them, that smoker to make that comment that they don't know anyone that doesn't smoke, that makes perfect sense because we can only see what we are. And if they're being a smoker, they're going to see smokers, and you're not a smoker. So how many smokers are around you? Not many. I would put my life on it.
I see. I see. So we see that which we are, you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
That's just more evidence for my growing theory.
Okay. That's a huge parallel, you know, a huge realization because as you started to change, as you started to develop and work more on yourself, how did you see your friends group either dropping
Yeah.
off or coming on? How did you see that changing in your life, your relationships?
So most importantly, what I noticed is if there's a difficulty in a relationship and you are able to identify in yourself the difficulty that you're experiencing in that relationship, and you go in and whether you need to accept it, forgive yourself for it, or just literally shine light on it, just know that it happened. And every single one of my relationships shifted into a more positive direction once making that realization,
Mm-hmm.
which is how I play with that theory. Like if everyone's just a reflection, not just, but serves as a reflection for our growth, then like they're just little building blocks helping us get to our evolution. But it's up to us to learn the lessons, to accept the blessings and go within and find it within us. Like, oh, we're experiencing a lack of trust. Okay, I'm going to go within, and when in my life have I maybe not been trustworthy, or maybe I was not honest?
Mm.
And it'll come up because you sit with yourself long enough and everything comes up. And once if you need to forgive yourself for it, okay. If you need to accept that it happened, okay. And maybe you just need to shine light and be like, okay, that was me at that level of comprehension. I was doing my best at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those three things is what I've experienced that needs to happen, and that relationship will shift into the positive direction. You won't have that whatever issue anymore. But you can also, I've experienced, like, say you think it's, I need to forgive myself, or no, that's a bad example. Say that you think that you only need to accept it and you don't offer the forgiveness. Like, you can accept it, but still have some guilt around it. And the lesson might still come back. And that's how you're like, oh, I didn't learn, like, I didn't interpret that correctly. That's why it's still happening. So let me go back in. There's like two different experiences that I had to do that with, where it's like, oh, I thought I learned the lesson, but I didn't. I had to go back in, and it's like, okay, I have to forgive myself. Like, I seen it, I recognized it, but I'm still carrying this guilt, so I'm going to still see it on the outside. So let's go in and figure out how to let go of the guilt, which a lot of times is really just accepting that you were doing your best at that level of comprehension, because that's just innately what we're doing. Like, it's never, there's no ill will in any beings around you. It's just that we're all functioning at different levels of comprehension, and we're all on our own journeys, and we can't shake them to wake them up any faster. Like, they signed up for their specific journey, and they might not awaken ever. They might need to reincarnate a few more times before their awakening journey happens.
Wow. That's intense, you know, because when you talk about going back in and carrying that, you know, still carrying that with you, that sometimes we have a miscommunication, or we didn't interpret it quite the right way. What do you feel like? You said there were two experiences. What was one of those experiences where you had to go back in, or forgive yourself, or really interpret something more deeply?
So it was an instance of judgment. Like, I was having an experience with a friend, and it was like, why are they so judgmental? Why are they so judgmental? And I kept asking myself that. And what I came up with was because I had a relationship in my past that I was super judgmental of. So I had met that realization, but I never like forgave myself for it. I was just like, okay, that's what it is. Let's move on. And I was still experiencing the judgment in the current relationship, the friendship. And it was like, wow, this person's still very judgy. So like, why am I still experiencing this? And another key factor I realize is, like, if it's an interaction and it's like causing an emotional trigger, it's usually because there's a lesson to be learned. Versus if we're in an experience and we're not having any kind of trigger, like, that is how I tell, like, I'm viewing someone as they truly are versus I'm viewing them as a lesson in my own growth. So the fact that I went in, recognized the judgment, came back out, was interacting with this person still, and still experiencing judgment, and still feeling like icky about the judgment, that meant for me that there was still learning, there was still remembering to do. And once I went back in and like released and forgave myself for that, it disappeared. Like, she no longer judges. And it's like, wow, it really is us. Like, once we forgive our own self, or once we recognize that part of us and accept it, it's like, it doesn't show up anymore. So these beings are really serving our growth.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So there is a difference. You're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying there is a difference between seeing someone as a lesson for you, a growth area for you, a reflection of you, and then seeing someone actually as themselves, who they are. There's a difference.
For me, yes, in my experience, like, if there's no cause of discomfort or trigger, like I said, then that's me experiencing them at their level of comprehension. Versus when I get that ickiness inside, like, oh, something doesn't feel right, that's my cue to be like, okay, what's going on in here?
Okay. And how do you feel like you've learned how not to take things personally, even when you're experiencing someone at their level of comprehension?
because I know not anyone is putting ill will against me. That's just a knowing that I've definitely met through Shivambu. Like that's where I met a lot of these realizations. So
Talk about it. So you met that knowing throughout your own water, your relationship with your water?
yes. So that's one thing. Like I don't know why, like the intention and if that has something to do with why people choose that practice and live that lifestyle. But when I went into it, it was for spirituality versus anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's why I have the experiences that I do, because I went in with that sole intention. Like even before I drink, and I loop every single day,
Mm-hmm.
every day, I speak into it, whatever intention, or I'll thank it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for teaching me. Same with the sun, or thank you for helping me remember. Because like that's what I refer to that is. It's like liquid remembrance, liquid courage, liquid veil lifter of illusion. Like that's because that's the experiences that I'm having. And my meditations and like silence and downloads had just skyrocketed after that practice started. But it was just, it's wild because like the more that I meet people that are also on that journey, it's like, okay, not everyone's having that same experience. Because when I was on it, Jerome, I'm the only person that I knew on it. I went through that journey alone. Like there was no one holding my hand. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have any guidance other than higher guidance, which is all we need, is what I eventually learned. But in the beginning, I'm like, I wish I had someone, but I really didn't need anyone. But it was like, I just assumed, silly little me, assuming that it serves the same purpose for everyone. But then I met, someone that inspired me to start it, and it was just a different experience in real life than on this platform. And when I was able to experience the energy like up close, like that 6 feet, that's when we can start to really feel other people's auras and their energy, and we can actually absorb it and be like, is this authentic or is this not? And I could feel a lot of fear in his being. And I'm like, wow, I guess it's not liquid courage for everyone. And it's just like, and then you were sharing your story about coming to this realm. And like, I just received a massive download, like during this journey of why we come here and how we get here. And I assumed again that it was because I was drinking my own waters. I was just assuming that we were all receiving like truth. But I'm starting to learn that our mindset and our beliefs overpower literally everything. Like my partner asked me one day, because he knows I do this, he's fully supportive, he's like, I'm not there, but whatever you need to do. And he asked me one day, he's like, do you think it works because you believe it works, or do you think it just works? And I'm like, that's a really good question. I said, I really think it works because I believe it works. And if I held the belief that it was poison and it would harm me, that's what it would do. That's the outcome that I would receive. So I want to hear your response to that.
Gosh, like there's so much to unpack. There's so much to unpack. First of all,
I know that was a lot.
I love liquid courage. First of all, I'm gonna start talking. I'm gonna start saying that, because we use liquid courage. Well, I've heard it used to describe alcohol or things.
Yes, I have heard it used to call it that. Yeah.
That lower people's inhibitions and make people susceptible to, and just allow people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. So I've heard liquid courage attributed to something that I feel is actually toxic, versus now saying liquid courage to something that everyone else thinks is toxic, but to me is actually nourishing and flourishing, within my vessel. So I start using liquid courage now. Thank you. There's so many phrases that I've used for it, like the elixir of life, the fountain of youth, the water of truth, and it's, I mean, for me as well, I strongly believe now, but at first it was challenging. I had to break through. There was a barrier of belief that I feel that I did have to break through. And in the beginning, I almost told myself like a mantra. I like how you said the gratitude chants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your gratitude chants that you not only talk to the sun, but you talk to your water, the, you know, the teaching and healing and nourishing and fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling myself as I was looping in the beginning, like mineral water. That was a mantra in my mind. I kept
Okay.
saying mineral water, mineral water. And I had to keep saying it repetitively in my mind as I did it. And then it got to the point where I didn't have to say it anymore. I just knew that this was healing for my vessel, you know? I just knew
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to wrestle with the idea of this not being good for me, even though I was doing something that it was so backwards. Because I resonate with you, Erica. I began this alone, you know?
Okay.
I was alone. I was in downtown Los Angeles when I saw a video
Mm-hmm.
of that the lady inspired me to do it, Monica
Right.
Schuett, you know? So Monica Schuett inspired me to do it. And that was all the direction I had, you know? But
Mm-hmm.
that was all that I needed, you know? I
Right.
didn't need a whole bunch of direction. I just kind of needed to feel that connection with myself that I had never felt before, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Area that had been untapped and unexplored for the majority of my life. I had been given a vision, a perception that this is meant for only waste, right?
Right.
This is not meant for you to taste,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is meant for that. So when I embraced this, it was like embracing a part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, forget everything that it did for my
Right.
health.
Right.
This was embracing a part of myself
Mm-hmm.
that was like, oh, this is self-love right here, you know? Because if I'm like doing something that is so backwards to everyone else, but for me, it feels, you know, this is like self-love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving part of myself that I discarded, that I kind of just was just disregarding, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel like for me as well, I mean, there is a level of belief, you know, that placebo effect that you can, if you can make yourself sick, you can make yourself healthy
Mm-hmm.
through the power of your mind, through the power of
Yes.
belief. And then there's also another effect that I've seen physically. I've seen evidence of that level of detoxification. I've seen it, the effects that it has that are, they're visceral. They're right there. You
Right.
know, I can see it. It's tangible. It's not like, it's not ethereal, you know, it's right in front of my eyes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of given me evidence to become, you know, a scientist in your own laboratory. You're conducting your own lab experiments, you're testing and you're finding out, and you defer to your notes and you come to your own conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it became a solution for many things. So thank you for that question. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
thank you for that.
Abia says everything starts with a belief, but the power is in the trust. And
Oh.
that reminds me of what I was when I read Yogananda. So
Mhm.
they were talking about the reason why, like, where like jewels and crystals came about for their use, and it was like people are more apt to put their beliefs in other things rather than themselves.
Mm.
So it's never the actual. So he would give like everyone that he was healing, his guru would give them like a bracelet or an
Mhm.
amulet to carry, and it's like, don't put this down until you're healed.
Mhm.
And he's like, and he was telling Yogananda, he's like, it's not the crystal, it's not the amulet, but people don't want to believe in themselves. So it gives them somewhere to put their trust, put their belief, and like really the power's within us the entire time. But us as beings don't always have that trust.
Right, right. Oh man, you're giving me chills. You're giving me chills right now because, like, you were talking about the amulet, Erica,
Mm.
and there was a story. I'm gonna find the story. I'm specifically gonna find the story and tell you the actual story, but I'm paraphrasing. There was like in this thing I saw, it was called Jade Empire, and it talked about this emerald or this stone or some kind of thing that was given to this young boy, and he wore it from like a real young type. He wore it all the way up until in his later years.
Mm-hmm.
And this amulet was like lucky, you know, it was all luck. And nothing bad ever happened to him. His whole life, as long as he wore this amulet, as long as he wore this pendant thing, he had so much luck. Wealth was attracted to him, beauty was attracted to him. He became magnetic. He affected people in so many magnificent ways, and nothing bad happened until one day. I don't know if he got bored or he just got, you know, since there was no up and down, it was all up, 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 up. It just got to the point where it was never enough, and just felt stuck in the up, 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 right? And there was just no down. So he finally, like one day, he took off the amulet, and as the moment he took it off, the moment he took it off, he was struck by lightning.
And that's where his real growth began.
Right. Like instantly, it just boom. It was almost like he had been protected, you know, for his whole life. And since he had always been protected, he was never affected.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
But if we could just put that protection within, that trust within, like we don't need anything outside.
Right.
We have it all in here.
Right.
Within us.
Right.
The kingdom of heaven is within us.
Right. Right. I agree. So I guess that can be like, you know, a cautionary tale of what might happen if you put your trust into an object, or you put your trust into something external from you, and you put all that trust and faith and devotion in something that is apart from you, but you don't put it into yourself. You know, what can happen with that level of belief? Because, I mean, yeah.
We would be truly limitless, like we're designed to be.
Wow. Wow. Blessings. Oh my God. Nabiha is over here giving so much. What did she say? That holy water works no matter what the religion, because the power comes from the people who trust. Power is truly within. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I swear, like, belief trumps everything. That's why I say, like, when you get like all these different diets that people talk about that work for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, you look at them and it really is working for them, and it's because they believe that's what's healthiest for their being. So it's like you got the vegans that swear it's the healthiest, you got carnivores that swear it's healthiest, and they're both their healthiest selves. Well, it's because they got the power of belief working in their favor.
Wow. I mean, they talk about yogis that can ingest poison and be unaffected, you know, like that's a big saying that I remember hearing about, you know, someone who has reached or attained a level. But I guess it's a relief because it's a belief, you know, they've attained that level of belief. So even if something is ingested, it's not in the same way digested, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Every time we talk, there's always like, it's always groundbreaking. Why is it always groundbreaking?
I don't know. We just pull it out of each other, I guess. But I just want to comment because you were talking about how it's a miracle to be born. And I want to just say, because I see this differently.
Okay.
I think it's a miracle in the profound way that existence itself is a miracle. But the fact that we come here into this planet Earth realm of illusion, that I don't see as a miracle, because what I had received in one of my meditations is that we choose to come here. Like, before our souls come to this realm, we see what family we're going to be into. Like, there's purposely selected to give us the lessons that will bring us to our evolution. We see the experiences that we're going to have. We know all the dates. We know all the times. We know all before we come here. And then we come here and we forget. And we know that we're going to forget when we come here.
Yeah.
And that's part of the game. But I'm just say, like, to me, it's not a miracle that we come here because it's a choice that we make as many times as we want to.
Yes.
But the fact that we exist, like our souls, it came into existence, that to me is the true miracle.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that distinction. You know, thank you for that, because you just reminded me, Erica, in years ago, I was with a partner, one of my partners, and, you know, we were very intimate. And, you know, there were some times where, like, she didn't like birth control at all, so she never used birth control. But whenever I would, you know, use protection,
Mm-hmm.
right? She would tell me, like, you know, if a soul's gonna come through, it's gonna come through. You know, there's nothing you can do.
Right?
She told me this. She was like, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
If a soul's gonna come through, it's gonna come through.
Yes. And she was tapped in, because most think that they're creating souls when they're making babies. And that's not what humans do. Humans make little humans for souls to come into. We're not creating anything, because everything was created at the same point and nothing can be destroyed. So we're not creating anything. We're bringing souls. We're portals for souls to come into this realm.
Whew, whew.
So your ex-partner was very tapped in.
I will definitely agree. She was. She is. She still is. But yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She's definitely tapped in. But thank you. Thank you for that. You know, thank you for bringing that perspective on portals, that we are actually bringing things in, you know, souls. I think that's even a higher perspective, you know? So this is the directive. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the space.
Of course, of course. What did she say before we go? Oh man, if you always believe that you're lacking, you will lack something. Yeah, so we're talking
Absolutely.
about blessings. Anything before, you know, before we depart? This has been such a conversation, so nourishing. I'm just like, I'm gonna go back through this whole thing again.
Break it down, chew on it a little bit, spit out what you don't like.
Right. Anything else before we go?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay.
Just grateful to be here.
Yes. Always gratitude. Yes. Thank you for that. So, blessing. I look forward to the next time.
Yes.
Together.
Until next time.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well, Jerome.
All right.
Blessings.
Much love.